The Organized Edge, a proven blueprint for organization, focus, and life mastery, published by Profound Audiobook. Introduction. Organization is one of the most underestimated advantages a person can possess. It rarely attracts attention, yet it quietly shapes success, influences confidence, reduces stress, and creates the conditions for extraordinary achievement. Behind every productive day, every meaningful accomplishment, and every well-lived life, there is usually a level of order that makes it all possible. Not perfect order, but intentional order. Life has a way of becoming crowded with responsibilities, distractions, commitments, and unfinished tasks. Without a reliable system for managing them, even talented and hard-working people can feel overwhelmed. They stay busy, but make little progress. They work harder, but gain fewer results. They spend their days reacting instead of directing. The problem is not a lack of ability. The problem is a lack of organization. The good news is that organization is not a gift reserved for naturally tidy people. It is a skill. Like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and strengthened over time. Small improvements in the way you manage your environment, your time, your attention, and your commitments can create remarkable changes in every area of life. In this audiobook, we will explore a proven blueprint for creating order, strengthening focus, building effective systems, managing priorities, protecting your energy, and developing the habits that lead to lasting success. You will discover practical principles that can help you reduce mental clutter, make better decisions, accomplish more with less stress, and gain greater control over your days. The Organized Edge is not about perfection. It is about clarity. It is about creating a life where your actions align with your goals and where your time, energy, and attention work together in service of what matters most. Let us begin the journey toward a more organized, focused, and purposeful life. Chapter 1. Stop living in reaction mode. Every day, you are either directing your life or responding to it. There is very little middle ground. The difference between people who consistently make progress and those who constantly feel overwhelmed often comes down to a simple distinction. One group lives intentionally, while the other lives reactively. One decides what deserves attention before the day begins. The other waits for circumstances, interruptions, and demands to decide for them. Reaction mode is easy to fall into because it feels productive. You answer messages as soon as they arrive. You handle problems the moment they appear. You jump from one task to another, responding to whatever seems most urgent. At the end of the day, you may feel exhausted because you have been busy from morning until night. Yet despite all that activity, you often have little to show for it. Important goals remain untouched. Meaningful projects move forward slowly. Life begins to feel like a constant effort to keep up. The challenge with reaction mode is that it places you at the mercy of external events. Your priorities become shaped by other people's requests. Your schedule becomes controlled by interruptions. Your attention is pulled in dozens of directions throughout the day. Instead of acting with purpose, you spend your time responding to whatever happens next. This creates a cycle of stress because there is always something new demanding attention. No matter how much you accomplish, the feeling of being behind never seems to disappear. Organization begins with a decision to break this cycle. It begins when you recognize that your time, energy, and attention are valuable resources that deserve protection. Organized people are not necessarily smarter, more talented, or more disciplined than everyone else. They simply understand that if they do not take control of their days, someone or something else will. They understand that success rarely happens by accident. It happens when important actions are chosen deliberately and repeated consistently. Think about a ship crossing the ocean. Without a destination and a course, the ship will drift wherever the winds and currents take it. The crew may stay busy adjusting sails and responding to changing conditions, but without direction, all that effort leads nowhere meaningful. Life works in much the same way. Activity alone is not enough. Movement alone is not enough. Progress requires direction. Organization provides that direction. One of the most powerful changes you can make is to stop asking, "What should I do next?" and start asking, "What matters most today?" Those questions may sound similar, but they produce completely different results. The first encourages reaction. The second encourages intention. When you identify your most important priorities before the day begins, you create a roadmap for your attention. You no longer need to rely on emotions, impulses, or circumstances to determine your next step. This does not mean you will never face unexpected situations. Life is unpredictable. Emergencies arise. Opportunities appear. Plans sometimes change. Organization is not about controlling every minute of every day. It is about creating enough structure that unexpected events do not completely derail your progress. It gives you a foundation to return to when distractions threaten to pull you off course. Many people assume they need more time in order to achieve their goals. In reality, what they often need is greater control over the time they already have. Every person receives the same 24 hours each day. The difference lies in how those hours are directed. When you stop reacting to everything and start acting with purpose, the quality of your days begins to improve. You become more focused, more productive, and far less stressed. As you move through this audiobook, remember that organization is not about becoming rigid or inflexible. It is about becoming intentional. It is about deciding that your life deserves direction. The moment you stop living in reaction mode is the moment you begin taking ownership of your future. And every lasting transformation starts with that decision. Chapter 2. Remove what doesn't belong. Order is not created by adding more. It is created by removing what no longer serves a purpose. Many people believe organization begins with buying planners, installing productivity apps, creating filing systems, or developing complicated routines. In reality, organization begins much earlier. It begins with a willingness to let go. Before you can organize your life, you must first create space within it. Space in your environment, space in your schedule, space in your mind. Every object, commitment, responsibility, and distraction carries a cost. Some costs are obvious while others remain hidden. A cluttered room takes longer to clean. A crowded calendar leaves little room for meaningful work. An overloaded mind struggles to focus. Over time, these small costs accumulate until they begin to affect the quality of your life. You may not notice the impact immediately, but you feel it through constant stress, scattered attention, and the frustrating sense that life is becoming harder than it should be. One of the greatest myths about success is the belief that achievement comes from doing more. The truth is that achievement often comes from doing less, but doing it better. The most effective people are not constantly adding new obligations to their lives. They are regularly evaluating what deserves their attention and removing what does not. They understand that every yes requires 100 invisible no's. Every commitment occupies time that could have been spent somewhere else. Every possession demands some degree of maintenance. Every distraction competes with something more important. Imagine walking into a room filled wall to wall with furniture. Even if every piece is valuable, the room becomes difficult to use. Movement is restricted. The space feels crowded. The purpose of the room is lost beneath the sheer volume of things inside it. Life works the same way. When too many activities, possessions, and responsibilities compete for your attention, clarity disappears. You become busy managing the excess instead of enjoying what truly matters. Nathan Reynolds learned this lesson the hard way. Nathan was a landscape architect whose days were filled with project deadlines, client meetings, design revisions, and field inspections. Over the years, his office slowly became a storage area for unfinished projects, old files, design samples, and equipment he rarely used. His desk disappeared beneath stacks of paper. His digital folders became equally chaotic. Every day seemed to begin with a search for something he needed. At first, he dismissed it as a minor inconvenience. Eventually, however, the disorder began affecting his performance. Deadlines became harder to manage. Important information was misplaced. Stress followed him home each evening. One weekend, Nathan decided to remove everything from his office that no longer served a current purpose. He archived old projects, discarded unnecessary materials, reorganized his workspace, and simplified his systems. The result was immediate. He found information faster, worked with greater focus, and felt more in control of his responsibilities. Nothing about his talent changed. The environment around him changed, and his effectiveness improved as a result. The lesson is simple. Clutter is not merely a physical issue, it is an attention issue. Every unnecessary item quietly competes for mental space. Even when you are not consciously thinking about it, your brain continues to process the unfinished, the disorganized, and the unresolved. This creates mental noise, and mental noise makes focus difficult. The same principle applies beyond physical possessions. Many people carry commitments they no longer need. They continue attending meetings that provide little value. They maintain obligations out of habit rather than purpose. They say yes because they feel guilty saying no. Over time, these unnecessary commitments become just as burdensome as physical clutter. They consume energy that could be invested in more meaningful pursuits. Removing what does not belong requires honesty. You must ask difficult questions. Does this activity still deserve a place in my life? Does this commitment support my goals? Does this possession add value or simply occupy space? These questions are not always comfortable, but they are essential. Every meaningful improvement begins with clarity, and clarity often arrives through subtraction. One reason people resist letting go is because they focus on what they might lose rather than what they might gain. They see the object, responsibility, or commitment itself, but they fail to see the freedom hidden behind its removal. Yet every unnecessary thing you eliminate creates room for something more important. Every distraction removed strengthens your focus. Every commitment released returns valuable time to your schedule. Every area simplified becomes easier to manage. Think of your life as a garden. A healthy garden requires more than planting seeds. It also requires pulling weeds. Left unattended, weeds consume resources that should nourish healthier growth. The same principle applies to your goals, your habits, and your environment. If you want something meaningful to flourish, you must be willing to remove whatever interferes with its growth. As you continue this journey toward greater organization, remember that simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is strength. It allows you to direct your attention where it matters most. It helps you move through life with greater clarity and less friction. The organized edge begins not by adding more systems, more tools, or more complexity. It begins by removing what does not belong and creating space for what truly does. Chapter 3. Give everything a proper place. One of the simplest principles of organization is also one of the most powerful. Everything should have a place. It sounds almost too simple to matter, yet this single idea has the ability to eliminate countless frustrations from your daily life. The reason many people feel disorganized is not because they lack effort. It is because too many things in their lives exist without a designated home. Papers end up wherever there is space. Tasks float around in memory. Digital files are saved wherever convenient. Important information becomes scattered across notebooks, emails, sticky notes, and random corners of the mind. Eventually, finding anything requires effort, and maintaining control becomes exhausting. Every time you search for something, you pay a hidden price. The cost is not just the few minutes spent looking, it is also the interruption to your concentration, the frustration that follows, and the mental energy consumed by the search. These small interruptions may seem insignificant in isolation, but over the course of weeks, months, and years, they add up to an enormous amount of wasted time and attention. Organization seeks to eliminate this waste by creating certainty. When everything has a proper place, you know where to find it and where to return it. Think about how much easier life becomes when important things are always where they belong. You never have to wonder where your keys are. You never waste time searching for a document you need. You do not spend 10 minutes trying to remember where you saved a file. Instead of relying on memory, you rely on a system. That distinction is important because memory is unreliable. Systems are dependable. Memory changes from day to day depending on stress, fatigue, and distractions. Systems remain consistent. Many people underestimate how much mental energy is spent simply trying to remember things. They carry lists in their heads, hoping they will not forget. They try to remember appointments, tasks, deadlines, errands, and responsibilities all at once. The mind was never designed to function as a storage facility. It was designed to think, create, solve problems, and make decisions. When you force it to store everything, you reduce its ability to perform its most important functions. This is why organized people create trusted locations for everything that matters. Physical items have designated spaces. Information has designated spaces. Commitments have designated spaces. Ideas have designated spaces. Instead of wondering where something belongs, they already know. The decision has been made in advance. This reduces confusion and eliminates countless small decisions throughout the day. The principle applies far beyond physical possessions. Your responsibilities also need a place. If a task exists only in your memory, it has no true home. It becomes one more thing your brain must constantly track. That creates unnecessary pressure. A written task list, a planner, a notebook, or a trusted digital system gives those responsibilities a proper place to live. Once captured, they no longer demand continuous attention. You can focus on the present moment without fearing that something important will be forgotten. The same idea applies to information. Many people save documents wherever it seems convenient at the time. Weeks later, they cannot remember where they put them. The result is a digital treasure hunt that wastes valuable time. A simple folder structure may not seem exciting, but it creates clarity. Organized people understand that every minute spent organizing is an investment that pays dividends later. The goal is not perfection, the goal is accessibility. One reason people struggle with organization is because they postpone decisions. They tell themselves they will deal with something later. A paper gets placed on a desk instead of filed. An email stays in the inbox instead of being processed. A document gets saved on the desktop instead of being stored properly. Each individual decision seems harmless, but over time these small delays accumulate into large amounts of disorder. Clutter is often nothing more than postponed decisions collecting in one place. Creating order requires making those decisions immediately. When something enters your life, determine where it belongs. If it deserves a place, assign one. If it does not deserve a place, remove it. This habit prevents disorder from accumulating and keeps your systems functioning smoothly. The organized edge is not built through occasional cleaning sessions. It is built through consistent daily choices. Another benefit of giving everything a proper place is that it creates trust. You begin trusting your environment, your systems, and yourself. You know that important information can be found when needed. You know that commitments are captured. You know that essential items are where they belong. This confidence reduces stress because uncertainty decreases. Much of anxiety comes from not knowing. Organization replaces uncertainty with clarity. Imagine entering a workshop where every tool hangs in a designated location. The moment a tool is needed, it can be found. The moment it is finished being used, it can be returned. Work flows smoothly because the environment supports the task. Now imagine the opposite. Tools are scattered randomly across the room. Nothing is where it should be. Every project takes longer because every step involves searching. The difference between those two workshops is not talent, it is organization. Your life operates in much the same way. Every area becomes easier to manage when things have a proper place. Your environment becomes calmer, your mind becomes clearer, your attention becomes more available for meaningful work. Instead of constantly searching, remembering, and recovering from disorder, you can focus on progress. As you continue building your organized life, remember this principle. If something is important enough to keep, it is important enough to have a home. Give every possession, every commitment, every responsibility, and every piece of information a proper place. When you do, you create a foundation of order that supports everything else you hope to achieve. Chapter 4. Build systems that think for you. Success becomes much easier when you stop depending on memory, motivation, and willpower for every important action. Many people spend their lives trying to stay organized through effort alone. They promise themselves they will remember important tasks. They rely on motivation to stay consistent. They try to keep everything under control through constant mental effort. Unfortunately, this approach eventually breaks down because human beings are not designed to remember everything or maintain perfect discipline every day. Even the most intelligent and hard-working people forget things, become distracted, and make mistakes. This is where systems become powerful. A system is simply a reliable process that produces a desired result. Instead of forcing yourself to think about every detail repeatedly, you create a structure that guides your actions automatically. The system handles what memory would otherwise have to manage. The system reduces the number of decisions you must make. The system protects you from the consequences of busy days, low energy, and unexpected distractions. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably do not debate whether you should do it each morning. You do not spend time deciding when, where, or how. The action is supported by a system that has become part of your daily life. Because the process is established, very little mental energy is required. Imagine if every important area of life operated with similar consistency. Imagine if your tasks, appointments, projects, finances, and responsibilities were all supported by dependable systems. Life would become far less stressful because you would no longer need to constantly manage every detail manually. One reason people struggle with organization is because they make the same decisions over and over again. Every morning becomes a new negotiation. What should I work on first? What did I forget yesterday? Where did I put that information? What needs my attention today? These repeated decisions consume mental energy. The more decisions you make, the more fatigue you experience. Over time, decision fatigue leads to poor choices, procrastination, and reduced focus. Systems solve this problem by eliminating unnecessary decisions. When you have a morning planning routine, you do not need to wonder how to start your day. When you have a process for handling incoming tasks, you do not need to decide what to do with every new responsibility. When you have a system for organizing information, you do not waste time wondering where things belong. The process already exists. Your job is simply to follow it. Olivia Bennet discovered this lesson during one of the busiest periods of her career. Olivia was a school principal responsible for overseeing hundreds of students, dozens of teachers, administrative requirements, parent meetings, and countless daily decisions. Despite working long hours, she often felt overwhelmed. Her desk was covered with paperwork, her inbox constantly overflowed, and important tasks occasionally slipped through the cracks. The problem was not a lack of dedication. Olivia cared deeply about her work. The problem was that she relied almost entirely on memory and effort to manage an increasingly complex workload. Eventually, she began creating simple systems for recurring responsibilities. She established a structured process for handling emails, a weekly planning session for reviewing priorities, and standardized procedures for common administrative tasks. None of these systems were complicated, but together they transformed the way she worked. Instead of constantly reacting to new demands, she followed established processes. The result was greater control, less stress, and improved effectiveness. Her workload had not decreased, but her ability to manage it had improved dramatically. The beauty of systems is that they create consistency. Motivation comes and goes, energy rises and falls, circumstances change. Systems provide stability when everything else fluctuates. They allow you to continue making progress even on days when you do not feel particularly productive. In many cases, systems matter more than motivation, because systems remain available long after motivation disappears. Another advantage of systems is that they free your mind for higher-level thinking. Every task that becomes automatic creates additional mental space. Instead of worrying about routine details, you can focus on creativity, problem-solving, and meaningful work. Your attention is no longer consumed by remembering what comes next, because the system already knows. Many people resist creating systems because they believe systems restrict freedom. In reality, the opposite is true. Lack of systems creates chaos, and chaos limits freedom. When everything depends on memory and last-minute effort, you spend your life putting out fires. Systems create freedom because they reduce uncertainty. They help important things happen consistently without requiring constant attention. The key is to start small. You do not need to build an elaborate organizational framework overnight. Begin by identifying areas where confusion, stress, or inconsistency regularly appear. Then, create a simple process to handle that situation. It may be a checklist, a routine, a planning session, or a filing method. What matters is not complexity. What matters is reliability. As your systems grow stronger, your life becomes easier to manage. You spend less time recovering from mistakes and more time moving toward your goals. You become more dependable because your success no longer depends entirely on memory or motivation. Instead, it is supported by structures designed to help you succeed. The organized edge is not built through constant effort alone. It is built through intelligent systems that quietly support your progress day after day. When your systems begin thinking for you, your mind becomes free to focus on what truly matters. Chapter 5. Decide what matters before the day begins. A day without priorities is like a journey without a destination. You may stay busy, you may keep moving, you may even work hard. But at the end of the day, you often discover that your effort was scattered across dozens of small activities instead of concentrated on what truly mattered. This is one of the greatest challenges of modern life. Opportunities, requests, notifications, and responsibilities compete for your attention from the moment you wake up. If you do not decide what deserves your focus, something else will make that decision for you. Many people begin their day by immediately reacting to whatever appears first. They check messages, answer emails, scroll through updates, and respond to incoming requests. Before long, they are fully occupied with other people's priorities. Hours pass, and the important work they intended to accomplish remains untouched. By evening, they feel exhausted, but strangely dissatisfied. The reason is simple. Activity does not automatically create progress. Progress comes from directing your energy toward the right things. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is deciding what matters before the demands of the day begin arriving. This simple practice creates clarity. Instead of wondering what to do next, you already know. Instead of allowing urgency to dictate your actions, you operate according to intention. The difference may seem small, but its impact is enormous. People who consistently make progress do not leave their priorities to chance. They choose them deliberately. Consider what happens when you enter a grocery store without a list. You may walk through every aisle, picking up items that catch your attention. You might purchase things you do not need, while forgetting things you do. The experience becomes less efficient because there is no clear target. A written list creates focus. It guides your actions and helps you ignore distractions. Priorities perform the same function for your day. They act as a guide that keeps your attention aligned with what is important. One reason people struggle to prioritize is because everything feels important. Responsibilities pile up, deadlines approach, and every task appears urgent. Yet not all tasks carry the same value. Some activities create meaningful progress. Others simply keep you busy. Learning to distinguish between the two is one of the defining characteristics of organized people. They understand that a few important actions often produce more results than dozens of minor ones. Imagine that you could only complete 3 meaningful tasks today. Which 3 would create the greatest positive impact? Which 3 would move you closer to your goals? Which 3 would leave you feeling satisfied at the end of the day? Questions like these force you to identify what truly matters. They encourage you to separate the essential from the merely urgent. Many people spend too much time doing things that feel productive rather than things that are productive. Organizing files may feel useful when an important project feels difficult. Answering emails may feel productive when planning requires deeper thought. Checking small tasks off a list creates a sense of accomplishment, but accomplishment and progress are not always the same thing. Real progress often requires attention to the tasks that are important but not immediately demanding. The challenge is that important work rarely announces itself with the same intensity as urgent work. A long-term goal does not send repeated notifications. A meaningful relationship does not always demand immediate attention. Personal growth does not arrive with a flashing warning light. Because of this, important things are often postponed in favor of whatever appears most pressing at the moment. Over time, however, this pattern creates frustration because the areas that matter most receive the least attention. Organized people reverse this pattern. They decide in advance where their energy will go. Before the day begins, they identify their most important priorities and commit to addressing them. This does not mean every minute is planned. Flexibility remains important. Life is unpredictable, and unexpected situations will arise. However, having priorities ensures that even when the day changes, your direction remains clear. There is also a psychological benefit to starting the day with clear priorities. Uncertainty creates stress. When you are unsure what deserves your attention, every option competes equally for consideration. This creates mental clutter. Clear priorities eliminate much of that confusion. You know what matters. You know where to begin. You know what success for the day looks like. That clarity creates confidence and momentum. Another advantage is that priorities help protect your time. Every day presents opportunities to become distracted. Some distractions are obvious, while others disguise themselves as productive work. When your priorities are clearly defined, it becomes easier to recognize when something is pulling you away from what matters. You become less vulnerable to interruptions because you have a standard against which every request can be evaluated. Think of priorities as a compass. A compass does not remove obstacles or guarantee a smooth journey. It simply keeps you moving in the right direction. In the same way, priorities do not eliminate challenges, but they help ensure that your efforts remain aligned with your goals. Without them, it is easy to drift. With them, progress becomes far more consistent. As you continue building the organized edge, make it a habit to decide what matters before the day begins. Choose your priorities before the world chooses them for you. Give your attention a destination. Give your effort a purpose. When you begin each day with clarity, you stop wandering through your responsibilities and start moving deliberately toward the life you want to create. Chapter 6. Put your time on a purpose. Time is the one resource that cannot be replaced. Money lost can be earned again. Opportunities missed can sometimes return. Mistakes can often be corrected. Time, however, moves in only one direction. Once an hour has passed, it is gone forever. This simple truth makes time one of the most valuable assets you possess. Yet many people treat it casually, allowing their days to unfold without intention and wondering why they never seem to have enough of it. The problem is not that people lack time. Every person receives the same 24 hours each day. The difference lies in how those hours are used. Some people direct their time with purpose, while others allow their time to be directed by circumstances. The result is often the difference between progress and frustration, between accomplishment and regret. Organization is not simply about managing tasks. It is about managing the limited hours available to you. Think about what happens when money has no plan. It tends to disappear. Small purchases accumulate, unnecessary expenses grow, and before long, there is little left to show for it. Time behaves much the same way. Without a purpose, it slips away through distractions, interruptions, delays, and activities that contribute little to your goals. Days pass quickly, weeks disappear, and important ambitions remain untouched. One of the most effective ways to organize your life is to assign purpose to your time before the day begins. Instead of hoping you will find time for what matters, you intentionally create it. This shift changes everything. It moves you from a passive relationship with time to an active one. Rather than reacting to whatever appears, you begin directing your hours towards specific outcomes. Many people underestimate how much time is lost through indecision. They finish one task and spend several minutes deciding what to do next. They move between activities without a clear plan. They start something, become distracted, and then struggle to regain focus. These small moments seem insignificant, but together they consume an enormous portion of the day. A purposeful schedule eliminates much of this waste by creating clarity. When you know what deserves your attention, transitions become smoother and focus becomes easier to maintain. Tyler Morgan experienced this challenge firsthand. Tyler worked as an event coordinator, managing conferences, corporate functions, and community events. His days were filled with phone calls, meetings, vendor communications, scheduling changes, and countless details that demanded attention. Despite working long hours, he constantly felt behind. Every evening seemed to end with unfinished tasks and growing frustration. Tyler believed he simply needed more time. After taking a closer look at his schedule, however, he discovered something surprising. The issue was not a lack of time. The issue was a lack of structure. Large portions of his day were being consumed by interruptions, unplanned activities, and constant switching between responsibilities. He began assigning specific purposes to different blocks of time. Administrative work was grouped together. Planning sessions were scheduled intentionally. Communication tasks were handled during designated periods rather than throughout the entire day. Within a few weeks, Tyler noticed a significant improvement. He was accomplishing more without working additional hours. His schedule had not become fuller, it had become more purposeful. One of the greatest misconceptions about scheduling is the belief that it limits freedom. People often imagine rigid calendars that leave no room for flexibility. In reality, purposeful scheduling creates freedom because it reduces uncertainty. When you know when important work will be completed, you no longer carry the burden of constantly worrying about it. You stop wondering if there will be enough time because time has already been reserved. Purposeful time management also helps protect what matters most. Many people claim that family, health, personal growth, and meaningful goals are important, yet when they examine how they spend their days, those priorities receive very little attention. This happens because intentions alone are not enough. Important activities must be given time. If they are left to chance, urgent demands usually take their place. Imagine a jar that must be filled with large rocks, small stones, and sand. If you pour in the sand first, there will be little room left for the larger rocks. However, if you place the large rocks into the jar first, the smaller materials can fit around them. Life operates according to a similar principle. Your most important priorities are the large rocks. They deserve space before the less important activities begin filling your schedule. Another benefit of assigning purpose to your time is that it improves focus. When a period of time has a clear objective, your attention naturally becomes more concentrated. Instead of constantly wondering what deserves your effort, you can devote your energy fully to the task in front of you. This reduces mental clutter and increases productivity. Of course, no schedule will unfold perfectly. Unexpected situations will arise, plans will change, emergencies will occur. The goal is not perfection, the goal is direction. A purposeful schedule serves as a guide, helping you stay aligned with your priorities even when life becomes unpredictable. Without that guide, it becomes much easier to drift. As you continue developing the organized edge, remember that time is not merely something to be managed, it is something to be invested. Every hour represents an opportunity to move closer to the life you want to create. When you assign purpose to your time, you stop allowing your days to happen by accident. You begin shaping them intentionally. And when enough intentional days are stacked together, they become an intentional life. Chapter 7. Train your attention to stay put. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Every achievement, every skill, every meaningful contribution begins with the ability to focus on something long enough to make progress. Yet, attention has become increasingly difficult to maintain. Modern life is filled with interruptions. Notifications appear constantly, messages arrive at all hours, entertainment is available instantly, information competes for your eyes and ears every moment of the day. As a result, many people struggle to remain focused on one thing for more than a few minutes at a time. The consequences of scattered attention are greater than most people realize. When your focus is constantly broken, the quality of your work declines. Tasks take longer to complete. Mistakes become more common. Mental fatigue increases. Even simple responsibilities begin to feel overwhelming. It is not because you lack ability. It is because your attention is being pulled in too many directions at once. One of the greatest myths of productivity is the belief that multitasking is a valuable skill. Many people take pride in juggling multiple activities simultaneously. They answer messages while attending meetings. They check emails while working on projects. They switch between tasks dozens of times throughout the day. On the surface, this may appear efficient. In reality, multitasking often creates the illusion of productivity while reducing actual performance. The human mind is remarkably powerful, but it is not designed to focus deeply on several demanding activities at the same time. What most people call multitasking is actually rapid task switching. Your attention jumps from one activity to another, forcing your brain to repeatedly stop, adjust, and restart. Each transition consumes mental energy. Each interruption leaves behind a small residue of attention. Over time, these constant switches make concentration increasingly difficult. Think about trying to dig a well. If you dig 1 foot deep in 20 different locations, you will never reach water. However, if you dig 20 feet deep in one place, your chances of success increase dramatically. Focus works the same way. Scattered effort rarely produces exceptional results. Concentrated effort often does. The ability to stay with a task long enough to complete meaningful work is one of the defining characteristics of highly organized people. Many individuals assume focus is something you either have or do not have. They believe certain people are naturally gifted with extraordinary concentration, while others are destined to remain distracted. The truth is far more encouraging. Focus is not a talent. It is a skill. Like any skill, it can be strengthened through practice. The more you train your attention, the stronger it becomes. One way to improve focus is to reduce the number of decisions competing for your attention. This is one reason organization is so closely connected to concentration. When your environment is cluttered, your schedule is chaotic, and your responsibilities are unclear, your attention becomes fragmented. Every unfinished task and unresolved commitment quietly competes for mental space. By organizing your surroundings and creating clear priorities, you make it easier for your mind to remain focused. Another powerful strategy is learning to work on one thing at a time. This may sound simple, but in today's world it is increasingly rare. Many people have become accustomed to constant stimulation. Silence feels uncomfortable, single tasking feels slow. Yet some of the most productive periods of your life will occur when you give your full attention to one meaningful activity. When your mind is not divided, the quality of your work improves dramatically. Consider the experience of reading a book. If you stop every few minutes to check messages, answer emails, or browse unrelated information, your understanding of the material suffers. The same principle applies to every important task. Deep focus requires continuity. The longer your attention remains engaged, the deeper your thinking becomes. Ideas connect more easily, problems become clearer, creativity improves, progress accelerates. One reason people struggle to maintain focus is because they underestimate the power of small distractions. A brief glance at a notification may seem harmless. A quick check of social media may appear insignificant. Yet these interruptions often cost far more than the few seconds they consume. Once your attention leaves a task, it can take several minutes to fully regain concentration. Multiply this by dozens of interruptions each day, and the impact becomes enormous. Training your attention also requires patience. In the beginning, you may notice how frequently your mind wanders. This is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Each time you notice your attention drifting and gently return it to the task at hand, you strengthen your ability to focus. Just as physical exercise strengthens muscles, repeated practice strengthens concentration. It is also important to understand that focus requires energy. Fatigue weakens attention. Poor sleep, constant stress, and mental overload make concentration more difficult. This is why organization matters so much. Organized systems reduce unnecessary stress and conserve mental energy, making it easier to direct your attention where it belongs. Imagine sunlight shining through a magnifying glass. When scattered, the light produces little effect. When concentrated into a single point, it becomes powerful enough to ignite a flame. Your attention works in much the same way. Scattered attention creates limited results. Focused attention creates momentum, achievement, and growth. As you continue building the organized edge, remember that attention follows direction. Decide what deserves your focus, eliminate unnecessary distractions, and practice staying present with the task in front of you. The ability to keep your attention where it belongs is one of the most valuable skills you will ever develop. Master it, and every area of your life becomes easier to improve. Chapter 8. Close the leaks that drain your day. A small leak can sink a large ship if it goes unnoticed long enough. The same principle applies to your time. Rarely is productivity destroyed by a single major problem. More often it is weakened by dozens of small leaks that quietly drain your day. A few minutes here, a brief interruption there, a habit that seems harmless, an unnecessary delay. Individually, these moments appear insignificant. Collectively, they can consume hours of your life every week. Many people believe they would be more productive if they simply had more time. Yet, when they look closely at how their days are actually spent, they often discover that time is not the real problem. The real problem is that too much of their time is slipping away unnoticed. Like money disappearing through small expenses, time disappears through small distractions, inefficient habits, and unnecessary interruptions. One reason these leaks are difficult to detect is because they rarely feel important in the moment. Spending a few minutes checking a notification does not seem costly. Browsing the internet for a short break appears harmless. Delaying a task until later feels reasonable. None of these actions seem significant on their own. The challenge is that life is not lived in isolated moments. It is lived through repeated patterns. When small distractions occur dozens of times every day, their impact becomes enormous. Imagine carrying a bucket of water across a field. If the bucket has several small holes, you may not notice the loss immediately. Step by step, however, water continues to escape. By the time you reach your destination, much of it is gone. The same thing happens with attention and time. Every unnecessary interruption allows a little energy to escape. Every distraction breaks concentration. Every delay reduces momentum. Eventually, you arrive at the end of the day wondering where your time went. Rebecca Foster learned this lesson after years of frustration. Rebecca worked as a physical therapist in a busy rehabilitation clinic. Her days were filled with appointments, patient evaluations, treatment plans, and administrative responsibilities. Despite arriving early and staying late, she constantly felt behind. Important projects were delayed, paperwork accumulated, and stress followed her home every evening. Rebecca assumed her schedule was simply too demanding. One week, she decided to track how her time was actually being spent. What she discovered surprised her. The biggest problem was not her workload. It was the constant stream of small interruptions throughout the day. She checked messages between appointments. She responded to non-essential requests immediately. She allowed frequent disruptions to pull her away from important work. None of these activities seemed significant individually, but together they consumed nearly 3 hours each day. Once Rebecca recognized these time leaks, she began creating boundaries around her attention. She grouped similar tasks together, limited interruptions during focused work periods, and became more intentional about how she spent her time. The result was dramatic. Her workload felt more manageable even though it had not changed. This experience reveals an important truth. Productivity is not only about what you do, it is also about what you stop doing. Many people focus exclusively on adding better habits while ignoring the behaviors that quietly undermine progress. Yet, eliminating one major distraction can sometimes create more improvement than adding several new productivity techniques. One common source of time leaks is constant accessibility. Technology has made communication easier than ever before, but it has also created an expectation of immediate response. Messages arrive throughout the day, each demanding attention. The temptation to respond instantly is powerful. However, every interruption carries a hidden cost. Once your attention leaves an important task, regaining focus takes time. What begins as a 30-second distraction often becomes a much longer interruption. Another common leak is unnecessary decision-making. Some people spend considerable time deciding what to do next because their priorities are unclear. They move from one activity to another without a plan. This creates hesitation and wasted energy. Organized people reduce these leaks by making important decisions in advance. They know their priorities before the day begins, allowing them to move directly into meaningful work. Perfectionism can also become a major drain on productivity. While striving for excellence is admirable, obsessing over minor details often creates diminishing returns. Some tasks require exceptional effort, others simply require completion. Learning to recognize the difference allows you to invest your time more wisely. Not everything deserves your highest level of attention. Another subtle leak appears in the form of unfinished tasks. Every incomplete responsibility occupies mental space. Even when you are not actively working on it, your mind continues to track it. This creates mental clutter that weakens focus. Organized people regularly review and process unfinished commitments because they understand that mental energy is too valuable to waste. The goal is not to eliminate every moment of relaxation or enjoyment. Rest is important. Breaks are necessary. Leisure has value. The difference lies in intentionality. Time spent deliberately is rarely wasted. Time lost unconsciously often is. When you choose how to spend your time, you remain in control. When distractions choose for you, control gradually slips away. One useful habit is periodically asking yourself a simple question. Is this the best use of my attention right now? That question creates awareness. It forces you to pause and evaluate whether your current activity aligns with your priorities. Over time, this awareness becomes one of the most effective tools for protecting your time. As you continue building the organized edge, remember that success is often determined by what you preserve rather than what you acquire. Protect your attention. Guard your energy. Close the leaks that quietly drain your day. Every minute recovered becomes an opportunity to invest in something meaningful, and when enough of those minutes are reclaimed, they can transform the direction of your life. Chapter 9. Make decisions. Once, not repeatedly. Every day is filled with decisions. Some are small and seem insignificant. Others have a greater impact on the direction of your life. What many people fail to realize is that every decision, no matter how minor, consumes mental energy. Choosing what to wear, deciding what task to work on next, determining when to exercise, figuring out how to organize information, deciding whether to accept a request, each choice requires attention. Individually, these decisions may not seem demanding. Collectively, however, they create a significant mental burden. One reason organized people appear calm and productive is that they have learned to reduce unnecessary decision-making. They understand that the goal is not simply to make better decisions. The goal is to make fewer decisions about routine matters. By deciding certain things once instead of repeatedly, they free their minds to focus on more important issues. This principle may sound simple, but it has a profound effect on productivity, focus, and peace of mind. Think about how much time is wasted revisiting the same questions over and over. Should I work out today or tomorrow? What should I do first this morning? When should I pay my bills? Where should I store this document? How should I handle incoming emails? If these decisions remain unresolved, they must be made repeatedly. Every repetition consumes attention that could be used elsewhere. Imagine driving to a familiar destination. You do not stop at every intersection wondering which direction to go. The route has already been decided. Because the decision was made in advance, the journey becomes easier. In many ways, organization works the same way. When you establish clear rules, routines, and standards, you remove countless small decisions from your daily life. Many people believe freedom comes from keeping all options open. In reality, too many options often create confusion. When everything is undecided, every choice requires effort. The mind becomes crowded with possibilities. This leads to hesitation, procrastination, and mental fatigue. Organized people recognize that structure is not the enemy of freedom. Structure often creates freedom by reducing unnecessary complexity. One of the most effective ways to simplify your life is to create personal standards. A standard is simply a decision made in advance. For example, you may decide that every important appointment immediately goes into your calendar. You may decide that your planning session happens every Sunday evening. You may decide that certain hours of the day are reserved for focused work. Once these standards exist, There is no need to reconsider them each time the situation arises. The decision has already been made. This approach becomes particularly valuable when dealing with recurring responsibilities. Consider how much easier life becomes when routine tasks are guided by systems rather than constant deliberation. Bills are paid according to a schedule. Documents are stored according to a system. Priorities are reviewed at specific times. Instead of reinventing the process every week, you follow an established framework. This reduces stress and improves consistency. Another advantage of making decisions once is that it protects you from emotional fluctuations. Feelings change from day to day. Motivation rises and falls. Energy levels vary. If every important action depends on how you feel in the moment, consistency becomes difficult. However, when decisions have already been made, you are less vulnerable to temporary emotions. You follow the plan because the choice was made with clarity rather than impulse. Many people underestimate the hidden cost of indecision. They assume that delaying a choice carries no consequence. Yet indecision often consumes more energy than making the wrong decision. Unresolved choices linger in the mind. They create uncertainty and mental clutter. Days, weeks, and even months can be spent worrying about decisions that could have been resolved quickly. Organized people understand that progress often comes from moving forward with reasonable certainty rather than waiting for perfect certainty. This does not mean every decision should be made hastily. Important choices deserve thoughtful consideration. However, once sufficient information is available, it is often better to decide and adjust if necessary than to remain trapped in endless analysis. Perfection is rarely required. Progress usually is. Another powerful strategy is to create default actions for common situations. For example, when a new task arrives, you immediately capture it in your trusted system. When a meeting request appears, you evaluate it according to predetermined criteria. When a document needs to be stored, it goes into an established location. These defaults remove uncertainty and create consistency. They allow you to move through your day with less friction and greater confidence. Think about a pilot preparing for a flight. Pilots rely heavily on checklists and procedures, not because they lack expertise, but because they understand the value of consistency. Important decisions are often made before the plane ever leaves the ground. This reduces the chance of error and allows attention to remain focused on what matters most. The same principle applies to your life. Pre-decided actions create stability in situations that might otherwise become chaotic. Making decisions once also creates momentum. When you spend less time debating routine matters, you gain more time for meaningful work. Your attention becomes available for creativity, learning, problem-solving, and growth. Instead of being consumed by constant decision-making, you move forward with greater purpose and confidence. As you continue building the organized edge, look for opportunities to eliminate repeated decisions. Establish standards, create routines, develop simple rules that guide your actions. Decide once whenever possible and allow those decisions to serve you repeatedly. The less energy you spend on routine choices, the more energy you will have for the decisions that truly shape your future. Chapter 10. Take command of your digital life. Organization no longer exists only in physical spaces. Years ago, clutter was easy to recognize because it sat on desks, filled filing cabinets, and piled up in corners of rooms. Today, much of the clutter people struggle with is invisible. It lives inside inboxes, computer folders, cloud storage accounts, messaging apps, and mobile devices. The workspace may appear clean, Yet behind the screen exists a different kind of disorder, one capable of creating just as much stress and distraction as physical clutter. Digital clutter carries a unique challenge because it is easy to ignore. A stack of papers on a desk demands attention. Thousands of unread emails can remain hidden behind a single number. Dozens of scattered files can disappear into a hard drive. Hundreds of unnecessary photos can sit unnoticed in storage. Because digital clutter consumes little physical space, people often tolerate far more of it than they would in the physical world. Over time, however, the consequences become difficult to ignore. Every disorganized file, every overflowing inbox, and every chaotic digital system creates friction. Friction slows progress. It forces you to spend time searching instead of working. It interrupts focus. It creates frustration. The more digital information you accumulate, the more important organization becomes. Without it, valuable time is wasted navigating confusion. Think about how often you search for information. A document needed for an important project. An email containing essential details. A note saved months ago. A photograph required for a presentation. When these items cannot be located quickly, productivity suffers. The problem is rarely a lack of information. In fact, most people have access to more information than ever before. The problem is the inability to find and manage that information efficiently. Marcus Hayes experienced this challenge firsthand. Marcus worked as a court reporter, a profession that required handling thousands of digital documents, transcripts, recordings, and case files. Over the years, his digital systems became increasingly disorganized. Files were saved in inconsistent locations. Folder structures lacked clarity. Important documents were scattered across multiple devices. Searching for information became a daily frustration. Tasks that should have taken minutes often required much longer because valuable time was spent locating materials. Eventually, Marcus decided to overhaul his digital environment. He created a simple and consistent folder structure, established clear naming conventions, archived outdated files, and reduced unnecessary duplication. The changes were not complicated, but their impact was significant. Information became easier to find. Workflows became smoother. Stress decreased. His efficiency improved, not because he worked harder, but because his digital environment began supporting his efforts rather than obstructing them. The lesson is important. Organization is not about creating elaborate systems. It is about reducing friction. The easier it is to find, access, and manage information, the easier it becomes to focus on meaningful work. One of the biggest sources of digital disorder is the habit of postponing organization. A file is quickly saved to the desktop with the intention of sorting it later. An email remains in the inbox because there is no time to process it immediately. Notes are scattered across multiple applications. Each individual action seems harmless, but together they create a system of confusion. Over time, disorder accumulates faster than most people realize. Digital organization begins with consistency. When similar information is stored in predictable locations, retrieval becomes easier. Your brain no longer needs to guess where something might be. It already knows. Consistency reduces cognitive load because it eliminates uncertainty. Instead of searching through dozens of locations, you follow a clear path to the information you need. Email deserves particular attention because it has become one of the primary sources of digital stress. Many people use their inbox as a storage system, a task manager, a reminder system, and a communication platform all at once. The result is often an overwhelming collection of unread messages and unresolved responsibilities. Organized people approach email differently. They view it as a communication tool rather than a permanent storage location. Important information is processed, stored appropriately, or converted into actionable tasks rather than left indefinitely in the inbox. Another challenge of digital life is the constant flow of information. News updates, notifications, messages, advertisements, and content streams compete relentlessly for attention. Without boundaries, digital devices can become powerful sources of distraction. The issue is not technology itself. Technology is a tool. The problem arises when the tool begins controlling the user rather than serving the user. This is why digital organization must extend beyond files and folders. It also includes managing attention. Notifications should be evaluated carefully. Applications should serve clear purposes. Information consumption should be intentional rather than automatic. Every digital input occupies mental space. By reducing unnecessary inputs, you create more room for focus and clarity. A useful principle is to treat your digital environment the same way you would treat a physical workspace. If your desk became cluttered with random objects, you would eventually organize it. If documents were scattered across the floor, you would put them in their proper places. Apply the same standard to your digital world. Keep what is useful, remove what is unnecessary. Create systems that support efficiency. Digital clutter often feels harmless because it remains hidden behind screens, yet its impact is very real. It slows decision-making, increases frustration, and weakens focus. Organized people recognize that digital order is no longer optional. It is an essential part of modern productivity. As you continue building the organized edge, take command of your digital life rather than allowing it to command you. Create simple systems, reduce unnecessary complexity, protect your attention from digital noise. The goal is not perfection. The goal is clarity. When your digital world becomes organized, your mind gains more freedom to focus on what truly matters. Chapter 11. Finish more than you start. Starting is exciting. Finishing is powerful. Yet many people spend their lives collecting beginnings while rarely experiencing the rewards of completion. They start books but never finish them. They begin projects with enthusiasm only to abandon them halfway through. They make plans, set goals, and create intentions, but somewhere along the journey their momentum fades. As a result, they accumulate a growing collection of unfinished tasks, unrealized ideas, and lingering responsibilities. One of the hidden causes of stress is not the amount of work you have completed. It is the amount of work you have left unfinished. Every incomplete task occupies space in the mind. Even when you are not actively thinking about it, a part of your attention remains connected to it. The report you never completed, the project you postponed, the decision you delayed, the promise you made but have not yet fulfilled. These unfinished commitments create mental weight, and over time, that weight becomes exhausting. Organized people understand something important. Completion creates freedom. Every finished task removes a burden from your attention. Every completed responsibility restores mental energy. Every closed loop creates a sense of progress. This is why finishing is not merely about productivity, it is also about clarity. The more unfinished matters you carry, the more difficult it becomes to focus on what is in front of you. Think about walking through a room filled with open drawers. Each drawer represents something unfinished. One contains a task you need to complete. Another contains a conversation you need to have. Another contains a decision waiting to be made. Individually, they may not seem significant. Together, however, they create disorder. Closing those drawers restores order to the room. In much the same way, completing unfinished commitments restores order to your mind. One reason people struggle to finish what they start is because they underestimate the value of small progress. They imagine completion as a single dramatic event rather than a series of consistent actions. When progress feels slow, they become discouraged. They assume they are not moving forward quickly enough and begin shifting their attention to something new. Yet nearly every meaningful accomplishment is built through gradual progress. The book is written one page at a time. The business grows one customer at a time. The organized life is built one decision at a time. Another obstacle to completion is the attraction of novelty. New ideas are exciting because they come without difficulty. They exist in the imagination, where possibilities seem unlimited. Existing projects, however, contain obstacles, frustrations, and unfinished work. As a result, many people constantly chase new beginnings while neglecting the commitments they have already made. They confuse motion with progress. They remain busy, yet little is actually completed. The discipline of finishing requires learning how to remain committed after the excitement disappears. Every worthwhile goal eventually reaches a stage where progress feels slower, challenges appear, and motivation decreases. At that moment, the difference between those who succeed and those who do not becomes clear. Successful people continue moving forward. They understand that persistence often matters more than inspiration. Perfectionism is another common enemy of completion. Some people delay finishing because they want everything to be flawless. They continue revising, adjusting, and improving long after the work is good enough. While excellence is valuable, perfectionism often becomes a form of procrastination. The desire to make something perfect prevents it from being completed at all. Organized people recognize that completion often creates more value than endless refinement. Imagine a builder constructing a house. If the builder continually redesigns every detail without ever finishing construction, the house remains unusable. At some point, progress requires completion. Improvements can always be made later. The same principle applies to many areas of life. Sometimes the next step forward is not making something better, it is finishing it. One effective strategy is to reduce the number of active commitments in your life. Many people struggle because they are trying to advance too many projects simultaneously. Their attention becomes divided and progress slows everywhere. Organized people understand the value of concentration. They focus on completing a few important priorities before adding new responsibilities. This approach creates momentum because each completed task generates confidence and energy for the next. Completion also strengthens trust. When you consistently finish what you start, you begin trusting yourself more deeply. You know that your commitments have meaning. You know that your intentions are backed by action. This self-trust becomes a powerful source of confidence because it is based on evidence rather than hope. There is also a practical benefit. Every completed project creates capacity. Unfinished work consumes resources. Finished work releases them. The more responsibilities you complete, the more time, attention, and energy become available for future opportunities. Completion creates space for growth. Perhaps most importantly, finishing teaches resilience. It teaches you how to continue when enthusiasm fades. It teaches you how to overcome obstacles rather than avoid them. It teaches you that meaningful achievement often comes from persistence rather than brilliance. These lessons extend far beyond productivity. They shape character. As you continue building the organized edge, make completion a priority. Resist the temptation to constantly chase new beginnings. Look for opportunities to close open loops, finish unfinished responsibilities, and complete what you have already started. Progress is not measured by how many things capture your attention. It is measured by how many meaningful things reach completion. When you finish more than you start, you create momentum, clarity, and confidence that continue to build with every step forward. Chapter 12. Protect your energy like an asset. Many people spend years trying to manage their time while overlooking something even more important: their energy. Time determines how long you can work. Energy determines how well you can work. Two people may have the same number of hours available, yet achieve vastly different results because one has the energy to focus, think clearly, and perform at a high level, while the other struggles through fatigue and mental exhaustion. If organization is about making the best use of your resources, then energy deserves the same attention as time. Consider how different you feel after a restful night of sleep compared to a night of poor sleep. The number of hours in the day remains unchanged, yet your ability to use those hours is dramatically different. Decisions become harder. Focus weakens. Patience decreases. Tasks that normally feel manageable begin to feel overwhelming. This simple example reveals an important truth. Productivity is not merely a function of time. It is also a function of energy. One of the mistakes many people make is treating energy as though it will always be available. They assume they can continually push harder, stay up later, take on more responsibilities, and ignore the signals of exhaustion. For a while, this approach may appear effective. Progress continues. Goals are pursued. Responsibilities are handled. Eventually, however, the body and mind begin demanding repayment. Fatigue accumulates, focus declines, stress increases. What once felt manageable starts feeling difficult. Organized people understand that energy must be managed intentionally. They recognize that energy is not unlimited. It rises and falls throughout the day. Certain activities increase it, while others drain it. By paying attention to these patterns, they make smarter decisions about how to spend their time and effort. Jennifer Cole learned this lesson during a particularly demanding period of her career. Jennifer worked as an airline maintenance supervisor, responsible for coordinating inspections, overseeing schedules, and ensuring that critical safety procedures were completed correctly. The role required precision, attention to detail, and constant decision-making. For years, Jennifer believed success meant working longer hours whenever challenges appeared. She often skipped breaks, worked through fatigue, and pushed herself to keep going regardless of how exhausted she felt. Eventually, the strategy began to fail. Her concentration weakened. Small mistakes became more common. She felt constantly drained and struggled to maintain the same level of performance she once considered normal. After examining her routines, Jennifer realized that she had been managing her time while neglecting her energy. She began scheduling her most demanding responsibilities during her peak energy periods. She created time for recovery, improved her daily habits, and became more protective of her physical and mental resources. The result was remarkable. Her productivity increased even though she was working fewer hours. By protecting her energy, she improved the quality of her work. This story highlights an important principle. Productivity is not about squeezing more activity into every hour. It is about aligning your most important work with your highest levels of energy. Not every hour is equal. Some periods of the day naturally support concentration, creativity, and decision-making better than others. Learning to recognize these patterns allows you to use your energy more effectively. Think of energy as fuel in a vehicle. A car cannot continue driving indefinitely without refueling. No matter how powerful the engine may be, it eventually requires replenishment. Human beings operate according to the same principle. Continuous output without recovery leads to diminished performance. Rest is not the enemy of productivity. Proper rest is one of its foundations. Mental energy deserves particular attention because it is often depleted long before physical energy. Every decision, every interruption, every problem-solving task draws from a limited reservoir of attention and focus. This is one reason organization matters so much. Organized systems reduce unnecessary mental effort. They eliminate avoidable decisions and minimize confusion. As a result, more energy remains available for meaningful work. Stress is another major energy drain. When responsibilities feel disorganized or overwhelming, the mind remains in a constant state of alertness. Even during periods of rest, mental tension continues consuming resources. Organization reduces this burden by creating clarity. Knowing what needs to be done, where information can be found, and how responsibilities will be managed creates a sense of control that conserves energy. Many people focus exclusively on increasing productivity while ignoring recovery, yet high performance depends on both. Just as muscles grow stronger during recovery after exercise, mental performance improves when adequate rest and renewal are provided. Breaks, sleep, recreation, and moments of reflection are not signs of weakness. They are investments in future effectiveness. Chapter 13. Defend your calendar from other people's priorities. One of the greatest challenges in living an organized life is not managing your own priorities. It is protecting them. You can create plans, establish goals, organize your schedule, and identify what matters most. Yet, if you fail to protect those priorities, they can quickly be pushed aside by the demands, expectations, and requests of others. This is why organization requires more than systems and schedules. It also requires boundaries. Every day, people, situations, and opportunities compete for your time. Some of these demands are important and deserve attention. Others do not. The difficulty is that not every request arrives with a clear label. Many distractions disguise themselves as obligations. Many interruptions appear urgent even when they are not important. Without strong boundaries, your calendar gradually becomes a collection of other people's priorities rather than a reflection of your own. Think about your time as valuable real estate. If you owned a piece of land, you would carefully decide what could be built on it. You would not allow anyone to use it for any purpose they chose. Yet many people are far less protective of their time than they would be of their property. They agree to commitments without considering the cost. They say yes automatically. They allow interruptions to dictate their days. Over time, they become overwhelmed because their schedules no longer reflect their true priorities. One reason this happens is because saying yes often feels easier than saying no. Agreeing to a request avoids discomfort in the moment. It prevents awkward conversations. It allows you to appear helpful and accommodating. However, every yes carries a cost. Time spent on one activity cannot be spent somewhere else. Every commitment occupies space that could have been used for something more meaningful. This means that every yes is also a no to something else. Organized people understand this principle. They recognize that time is limited and must be allocated carefully. Rather than evaluating requests solely on whether they can do something, they evaluate whether they should do it. This distinction is important. Many opportunities are possible. Far fewer are truly worthwhile. Derek Sullivan learned this lesson during the growth of his career as a fire investigator. Derek's expertise earned him a strong reputation, and as his reputation grew, so did the number of requests for his time. Colleagues sought his advice. Organizations invited him to meetings. Community groups asked him to participate in various projects. Initially, Derek accepted nearly every request because he wanted to be helpful and maintain good relationships. Over time, however, his schedule became overloaded. Important investigations received less attention. Personal priorities were constantly postponed. His days felt fragmented and exhausting. Eventually, Derek realized that the problem was not a lack of discipline or effort. The problem was a lack of boundaries. He began evaluating commitments more carefully, declining requests that did not align with his priorities, and protecting time for his most important responsibilities. The result was immediate. His effectiveness improved, his stress decreased, and his schedule became more intentional. This experience highlights a reality many people overlook. Boundaries are not barriers against people. They are protections for what matters most. They allow you to give your best energy to the responsibilities and relationships that deserve it. Without boundaries, your attention becomes scattered across too many competing demands. Many individuals worry that setting boundaries will make them appear selfish. In reality, healthy boundaries often improve relationships because they create clarity and reliability. When you consistently overcommit, you risk disappointing others because you lack the capacity to fulfill your promises. When you protect your time and commitments carefully, you become more dependable. People learn that when you say yes, it genuinely means something. Another important aspect of defending your calendar is protecting focused work. Modern life encourages constant accessibility. Messages, calls, notifications, and requests can arrive at any moment. While communication is important, uninterrupted time is equally important. Meaningful work often requires sustained concentration. Without protected periods of focus, important projects remain unfinished and progress slows dramatically. This does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means being intentional about when and how you make yourself available. Organized people understand that accessibility should be managed, not unlimited. They create periods for communication and periods for concentration. Both have value, but they serve different purposes. It is also important to remember that boundaries are not only external. Some of the greatest threats to your priorities come from internal impulses. The urge to procrastinate, the temptation to pursue every interesting opportunity, the desire to avoid difficult work, these can be just as disruptive as outside interruptions. Defending your calendar sometimes means protecting your priorities from yourself. One useful habit is to evaluate every new commitment through the lens of your existing priorities. Before agreeing, ask yourself a simple question. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? That question creates awareness. It reminds you that every commitment has a cost. It encourages thoughtful decisions rather than automatic responses. Imagine a castle surrounded by strong walls. The purpose of the walls is not to keep everything out. The purpose is to control what comes in. In the same way, boundaries allow you to decide which commitments deserve access to your time and energy. Without those boundaries, every demand enters freely, and eventually the structure becomes overwhelmed. As you continue building the organized edge, remember that protecting your priorities is just as important as identifying them. Your calendar should reflect what matters most to you, not simply what demands your attention. Learn to set boundaries. Learn to decline what does not belong. Learn to guard your time with intention. When you do, you create space for meaningful work, deeper focus, and a life that aligns with your highest priorities rather than everyone else's expectations. Chapter 14. Audit your life and improve the system. No system remains effective forever without occasional review. Even the most organized plans, routines, and strategies require adjustment over time. Circumstances change, responsibilities evolve, priorities shift. What worked perfectly 6 months ago may no longer serve you today. This is why organization is not a one-time achievement. It is an ongoing process of observation, evaluation, and improvement. Many people make the mistake of treating organization as a project with a finish line. They clean their workspace, create a schedule, establish a few systems, and assume the work is complete. For a while, things improve. Life feels more manageable. Then slowly, almost unnoticed, disorder begins to return. New commitments appear, habits drift, small inefficiencies develop. Before long, the systems that once felt effective no longer produce the same results. The solution is not to work harder, the solution is to review regularly. Organized people understand that progress requires reflection. They do not simply move from one task to another indefinitely. They periodically pause and ask important questions. What is working well? What is creating unnecessary friction? Where am I making progress? What needs adjustment? These questions allow them to identify problems before those problems become overwhelming. Imagine a pilot flying across the country. Even with advanced navigation systems, the aircraft rarely remains perfectly on course throughout the journey. Wind, weather conditions, and countless other factors create small deviations. The pilot's job is not to eliminate every deviation. The pilot's job is to notice them and make corrections. Success comes from continuous adjustment. Life works in much the same way. The goal is not perfect execution. The goal is regular correction. One reason reviews are so powerful is because daily life often obscures the bigger picture. When you are busy handling responsibilities, solving problems, and responding to immediate demands, it becomes difficult to step back and evaluate your direction. Days blend together, weeks pass quickly. Without intentional reflection, it is easy to continue following habits and routines that no longer serve your goals. A personal review creates distance from daily activity. It allows you to move from participant to observer. Instead of being consumed by your schedule, you examine it. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you evaluate them. This perspective often reveals patterns that remain invisible during normal routines. Many people avoid self-review because they fear discovering mistakes. They worry about confronting unfinished goals, poor decisions, or wasted opportunities. Yet, avoiding review does not eliminate problems. It merely delays awareness of them. Organized people view mistakes differently. They see them as information. Every mistake provides feedback. Every setback contains a lesson. Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. The purpose of a personal audit is not self-criticism, it is self-improvement. There is a significant difference between the two. Self-criticism focuses on blame, self-improvement focuses on learning. One drains motivation, the other creates growth. When reviewing your systems, your habits, and your results, approach the process with curiosity rather than judgment. A useful review begins by examining your commitments. Are the activities occupying your time still aligned with your priorities? Have unnecessary obligations quietly accumulated? Are there responsibilities that should be delegated, simplified, or removed? Over time, schedules tend to become crowded unless they are reviewed intentionally. Regular evaluation helps prevent this gradual drift. Another valuable area to examine is your systems. Are they still serving you effectively? Is your task management process working smoothly? Are your organizational methods reducing stress or creating additional complexity? Sometimes people continue following outdated systems simply because they have become familiar. A review provides an opportunity to simplify, refine, and improve. Your habits deserve attention as well. Habits shape outcomes more than occasional actions ever will. Small daily behaviors accumulate into significant results over time. During a personal audit, ask yourself whether your habits are moving you toward the life you want or away from it. Honest answers to this question often reveal opportunities for meaningful improvement. Progress should also be measured. What goals have moved forward? What accomplishments deserve recognition? Many people focus exclusively on what remains unfinished while overlooking how far they have already come. This creates unnecessary discouragement. Organized people understand the importance of acknowledging progress. Recognizing growth builds confidence and reinforces positive behaviors. At the same time, it is important to identify areas where improvement is needed. Every system contains weaknesses. Every person has blind spots. Regular reviews help expose them. The earlier a problem is identified, the easier it becomes to correct. Small adjustments made consistently are often more effective than major changes made infrequently. Think of your life as a garden. A gardener does not simply plant seeds and walk away. The garden is monitored, maintained, and adjusted throughout the growing season. Weeds are removed, growth is encouraged, problems are addressed before they spread. Organization requires the same mindset. Continuous improvement produces healthier systems and better results. The beauty of regular reviews is that they prevent small problems from becoming large ones. A few minutes of reflection can save hours of future frustration. A simple adjustment today can prevent significant difficulties tomorrow. Over time, these small improvements compound into remarkable progress. As you continue building the organized edge, make reflection a regular habit. Set aside time to review your priorities, your systems, your habits, and your results. Ask honest questions, make thoughtful adjustments, stay flexible enough to improve while remaining committed to what matters most. The organized life is not built through perfection. It is built through continuous refinement. Every review is an opportunity to become a little more intentional, a little more effective, and a little closer to the person you want to become. Chapter 15. Turn organization into a way of life. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored organization from many different angles. We have discussed priorities, systems, focus, time management, energy, boundaries, decision-making, and continuous improvement. Each of these ideas is valuable on its own, but their true power emerges when they work together. Organization is not a collection of isolated techniques. It is a way of living. It is a mindset that influences how you think, how you act, and how you move through the world. Many people approach organization as a temporary project. They become motivated, reorganize their environment, create a schedule, establish a few systems, and then slowly drift back into old habits. This happens because they view organization as something they do rather than something they become. Lasting change occurs when organization becomes part of your identity. Instead of asking, "How can I get organized?" you begin asking, "How would an organized person handle this situation?" That subtle shift changes everything. The organized life is not built through occasional bursts of effort. It is built through consistent choices repeated over time. Every time you return an item to its proper place, you strengthen the habit of order. Every time you review your priorities before the day begins, you reinforce intentional living. Every time you protect your focus, honor your commitments, and improve your systems, you cast another vote for the kind of person you are becoming. These actions may seem small in the moment, but together they create a powerful identity. One of the greatest benefits of turning organization into a lifestyle is that it reduces friction. Life will always contain challenges. Unexpected events will occur, responsibilities will continue to appear. Yet organized people move through these challenges differently. Because they have systems, clarity, and structure, they spend less energy dealing with avoidable problems. They are not immune to difficulties, but they are better prepared to handle them. Imagine two people setting out on the same journey. One carries a well-organized backpack containing exactly what is needed. The other carries a bag filled with unnecessary items, missing essentials, and no clear system for finding anything. Both travelers face the same road, yet one moves with far greater ease. Organization works in much the same way. It does not remove obstacles, but it makes the journey more manageable. Another important truth is that organization creates freedom. At first glance, some people assume the opposite. They imagine schedules, routines, and systems as restrictions. They fear becoming trapped by structure. In reality, thoughtful structure often creates more freedom than chaos ever could. When important responsibilities are managed effectively, more time becomes available for meaningful experiences. When systems handle routine tasks, more mental energy becomes available for creativity and growth. When priorities are clear, decision-making becomes easier. Freedom is not the absence of structure. Freedom is the result of having the right structure. A bridge is able to carry enormous weight because it is supported by a strong framework. Without that framework, collapse would be inevitable. In the same way, a well-organized life provides the support necessary for long-term success, peace of mind, and personal fulfillment. It is also important to understand that organization is not about perfection. Perfection is neither realistic nor necessary. There will be days when plans change. There will be periods when life becomes messy. There will be moments when your systems need adjustment. Organization does not require flawless execution. It requires awareness and recovery. The goal is not to avoid every mistake. The goal is to notice when you have drifted off course and return to what works. Many people abandon good habits because they believe one setback means failure. They miss a day of planning and stop planning altogether. They experience a busy week and abandon their systems. Organized people take a different approach. They understand that consistency is built through recovery. Whenever disorder begins to return, they simply make corrections and continue moving forward. They treat organization as an ongoing practice rather than a finished achievement. Over time, the benefits of this approach begin to compound. Small improvements accumulate. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. Better systems reduce stress. Greater focus improves performance. Stronger habits create consistency. The changes may seem gradual at first, but eventually they become impossible to ignore. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes routine. Perhaps the greatest reward of an organized life is not increased productivity, although that certainly matters. The greatest reward is clarity. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about where your time should go. Clarity about the direction of your life. When your environment, priorities, and actions are aligned, you experience a sense of purpose that chaos can never provide. As you finish this audiobook, remember that organization is not a destination waiting somewhere in the future. It is a daily practice available to you right now. It is built through small decisions made consistently. It is strengthened through intentional action. And it becomes more powerful with every passing year. The organized edge is not found in perfect schedules, spotless desks, or complicated systems. It is found in the ability to direct your attention, manage your resources, and live with purpose. Make organization part of who you are, not just something you occasionally attempt. When you do, you gain more than efficiency. You gain control, confidence, and the ability to build a life that reflects your highest priorities. That is the true power of the organized edge. Conclusion. Organization is often misunderstood. Many people hear the word and immediately think of neatly arranged desks, color-coded calendars, perfectly labeled folders, or carefully planned schedules. While those things may have their place, they represent only the surface of what organization truly means. At its core, organization is about creating alignment between your intentions and your actions. It is about ensuring that your time, energy, attention, and resources are directed toward what matters most. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored a simple but powerful truth. Success is rarely accidental. Meaningful results tend to emerge from organized effort. People who consistently make progress are not necessarily more talented than everyone else. They do not possess more hours in the day. They simply develop habits, systems, and ways of thinking that allow them to use their resources more effectively. They replace chaos with clarity. They replace reaction with intention. They replace confusion with direction. You have learned that organization begins by taking control of your life instead of allowing circumstances to control it. You have seen the importance of removing unnecessary clutter, creating systems that reduce mental strain, giving every responsibility a proper place, and deciding what deserves your attention before the day begins. You have discovered how to direct your time with purpose, strengthen your focus, eliminate hidden distractions, simplify decision-making, and create order within your digital world. You have also seen that organization extends beyond tasks and schedules. It affects your energy, your habits, your boundaries, and your ability to learn from experience. It influences how effectively you recover from setbacks, how confidently you handle responsibilities, and how consistently you move toward your goals. Every chapter has pointed toward the same idea. Organization is not a collection of techniques. It is a way of approaching life. One of the most encouraging realities about organization is that it is learnable. You do not need a particular personality type. You do not need extraordinary discipline. You do not need perfect conditions. Organization is a skill, and like any skill, it improves through practice. Small changes repeated consistently create remarkable results over time. A single organized day may not transform your life. 1,000 organized days certainly will. Remember that lasting progress rarely comes from dramatic changes. It comes from small improvements applied consistently. A better system, a clearer priority, a stronger boundary, a more intentional decision. These actions may seem insignificant in isolation, yet they compound over time. Just as a small amount of money invested consistently can grow into a fortune, small acts of organization can grow into an extraordinary life. There will be moments when life feels messy. Unexpected challenges will appear. Plans will change. Responsibilities will increase. During those moments, do not measure your success by whether everything remains perfect. Measure it by your ability to return to the principles that work. Organization is not about avoiding disorder forever. It is about having the tools to restore order whenever it is needed. As you move forward, focus on progress rather than perfection. Choose one principle from this audiobook and begin applying it immediately. Then add another and another. Allow these practices to become habits. Allow those habits to become part of your identity. Over time, organization will stop feeling like something you have to do and start feeling like a natural part of who you are. The organized edge is not a secret reserved for a fortunate few. It is available to anyone willing to live with greater intention. Every organized choice strengthens your future. Every clear priority improves your direction. Every system you build creates greater freedom. Every distraction you remove creates more room for what truly matters. Years from now, the quality of your life will be shaped by the choices you make today. The way you manage your attention, the way you use your time, the way you protect your energy, the way you honor your priorities. These seemingly small decisions quietly determine the trajectory of your future. So move forward with confidence. Create order where there is confusion. Create focus where there is distraction. Create purpose where there is drift. Let organization become more than a productivity tool. Let it become a foundation for the life you want to build. Because when your actions align with your priorities, when your systems support your goals, and when your attention is directed toward what truly matters, you gain something far more valuable than efficiency. You gain control over your life. And from that control comes clarity, progress, confidence, and lasting success. That is the organized edge. And it is yours to build one intentional day at a time.